Like, okay, we need you to like fall in line here and do these interviews for the show, go here, do this thing and that thing to kind of like rally the troops and get it back.
I was surprised to read that Josh was in the room.
Yeah.
Off camera.
Yeah, kind of protected my brother, but then used me and some of my sisters. It was hard, and it's still hard to swallow. You treat me worse than you treat my brother.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. Hope you're having a great day. Well, if you haven't picked up Jill Duggar's new book, Counting the Costs, you should, because it is filled with a lot of interesting details about her life growing up with the Duggar family. And she is very open about everything that happened with Josh. Not all of the intimate details, but the aftermath of what happened leading up to when this report comes out and she is forced to go on the Megyn Kelly interview, the response by her father, and her realizing just how much her dad was willing to protect Josh, but not protect her. That's right. One of the details that comes out of this book is that Jill says that all she wanted her parents to do was to protect her, but instead they protected Josh at all costs. And she still doesn't understand why. So Jill Duggar's book is a very detailed look at her life going on reality television. You hear a lot about the perks of reality television and also the pitfalls, especially for kids who don't necessarily have a choice being on reality television. And a father that took a lot of steps to be very greedy with his money, not pay his kids, forge or kind of forge documents, have them sign contracts that they didn't know that they were signing, having them sign lifetime NDAs, and so much more. And on top of that, doing everything that he could to protect his secrets, his money, and the show under the guise that the show was helping spread the ministry of God. And Jill is very candid in this book, calling the show, it could have been deemed a ministry to her father, but to the network, it was simply entertainment. It was not a ministry, and the wider public was not viewing it as a ministry. To TLC, it was content. So in the book, we learn about how Jill and Jessa find out that their brothers, the investigation that happened into their brother when they were back in 2006 is going to be released by INTOUCH. And Jim Bob informs them that he's going to try to do everything he can to stop the release. Unfortunately, it just doesn't go that way. And what happens next is the report is released. Jill reads it on the magazine. She's horrified of the details that have been uncovered and how it's been written in a way that it's for someone's entertainment. She said that it was tabloid journalism at its worst. And she was heartbroken that this would have ever been released because this case never resulted in any charges. Closed door hearings had to happen like in juvenile court, and there was DCFS involvement. She said that they came to the house every so often to ensure the safety of the children. Josh had been sent away multiple times. And unfortunately, she didn't get a lot of help for it because by the time they reported it, it had been several years since it happened. And she said at the time, she didn't really feel like talking about it anymore. And she said back then she didn't know she needed help. So once the report goes all over the place, the Duggars go down to Oklahoma to somebody's ranch, and they are all together. And at the ranch, they're talking about the strategy of how they're going to get out of this, how they're going to save the show. Right during the middle of this, Jim Bob was not thinking about the damage and the humiliation and the pain that this release was causing his children and his daughters. Instead, he was focused on TLC and how he could save his show. She's also extremely clear that she holds Josh responsible. It's what he did to her is responsibility. She did say that She doesn't blame her parents for what Josh did to her, and she can't say how they handled it after the fact, but she doesn't blame them for putting her on a show and then having the records become released. Once they get to Oklahoma, she says Josh and Anna are there, which she's actually shocked by. She was surprised to see him there. And she writes, Josh and his family were also there. This might seem strange, but I suppose events were somehow viewed as things of the past. By that point, it had been about 3 months since I'd last seen Josh. He had moved to Washington, D.C. in 2013. As soon as the story broke, he resigned, and he and Anna and the kids all fled the paparazzi and came back to Arkansas. She said, I didn't know how to be around Josh. Although what had happened had been addressed back then and he had apologized many times, we didn't talk about what had happened anymore. It felt like the distant past, but even so, I didn't expect him to be quite as relaxed as he was. And later in the days, I didn't expect him to start laughing even though it was clearly nervous laughter, when he described being under siege by photographers. It felt weird that he was acting like this, but it was Mom who dealt with it. Josh, it's not your fault that this was released, but you need to know that you were behind all of this. Don't be so arrogant. Josh's smile vanished. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry to you girls that y'all are having to go through this. So she's surprised at how how casually he's taking this. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's not that big of a deal that he's had to resign, and like, it's somehow funny, okay? But it's beyond that where things get a little bit weird. So in the middle of all of this hurt and pain for the information getting released, with the daughters feeling and going through a lot of trauma, Jim Bob instead is not focused on them, but he's sitting with his friend Chad, who's his person that does all of his PR, and he is strategizing with Chad about how to save his show. She said he started by saying that TLC had paused the show and were considering canceling it altogether. It seemed painful for him to say it out loud and let the words hang in the air for the longest time. It was hard to see Pops like this, hard to see him wounded. It was impossible for me to imagine what life would be like for him, Mom, and my younger siblings without the show in their lives, because the show gave them a lot of things that they never could have afforded before. He says, there are people out there that would like us to fade away. The world would like to see us close our doors and disappear. But we're not going to do that. We're not giving up on this ministry. The window of opportunity that God has opened for his family to show the world what it means to follow him is still there. They think we're damaged goods, but I will work with TLC to see what we can do to get this thing back up. He said, it was wrong what Josh did, but we will get past this. We will move on. We need to help TLC understand this happened in the past, and this was something we already dealt with. So as they're strategizing how they're going to get through this negative press and change the narrative, and that is actually discussed in here, how they're going to change the narrative, they discuss going onto Fox News, having Megyn Kelly interview them and say that a woman from the family is the one that has to be the main person to speak. And so at first they say Michelle, and after some talk and discussion, and almost like they were going to ask Jill to do it, Jill offered to do it because they felt like Josh couldn't be the one to go up there. It would be too humiliating for Josh. So one of the girls would have to do it, or Michelle. We needed a soft approach to this. It was very, very choreographed. So she and Jessa are prepared by Chad. Chad gives her a script. She confirms that. And they discuss how they're going to respond to the questions. And then while she's giving the interview, she reveals that Josh was literally sitting in the room watching her. Sitting on the couch, watching his sisters defend him. Josh was never forced to defend himself and never forced to ever say anything publicly about this. His sisters were on Megyn Kelly, talking with her under the lights, and he was watching them. And Jill said that she was really upset and didn't understand why Josh got to watch them. And she said it just felt hurtful. Like, why would they put her in a position where Josh would be able to be there when he's the one that doesn't want to say anything? Like, they're making her do his damage control, but then he's there watching. I think it's really disturbing that they allowed the person that did these things to her watch what she said about what he did to her. Imagine having to do that. The person that essayed you is sitting right there while you talk about that person essaying you, just watching you, so that you can save his reputation and your dad's reputation. She was horrified, okay? After that, it's only a couple months later, and she finds out, news breaks about Josh's infidelity, Josh looking at content online. And she calls her mom, and her mom tells her, yes, it's true. This is what happened. Josh confessed. He's been looking at stuff online, and he's been signing up for these websites where he wants to cheat. And when they sent him away, again, her dad protected Josh. So Josh hits another scandal, and they don't do another interview this time, but instead, Jim takes great lengths to protect Josh from more public humiliation and scrutiny, and has him board a private plane, takes him to Illinois, and gets him to this rehab center. And this is what she writes about what her dad said. Hey guys, I just talked to Josh, and the guy who runs the place there where he's staying. He seems to be doing good. He's been working in the kitchen, and the guy who runs the program says he's doing really well. He said he's been like a role model for some of the others, and that he's their best person there. She said that he went to Reformers Unanimous in Illinois. She said it sounded better than sending him away to work construction. And she said, we had some trouble getting him up there. The paparazzi were trying real hard to find out where he was going. They even tracked the tail number of his flight, but at least we got him in there without him being seen. The guy who runs the program said they had some photographers show up at the open chapel looking for Josh, but the staff there have been very kind to us, and they were able to find a way to keep him out of sight. I just wanted to update everyone, as we are happy to receive a good report, and we pray that God continues to work in his life while he is there. So she said that this response by her dad made her feel sick. The way that he had carefully protected Josh, orchestrated a sneak away to this rehab facility, and then not protected her. Like she said, she was sick to her core, and she went to bed feeling ill. She wrote, when the INTOUCH story broke, all I had wanted was to be protected. All I had wanted was to have privacy and space to grieve without feeling the weight upon myself to fix the situation. I knew that in time, we were all going to do what we could to fight for justice in the legal system that had failed us by initiating a lawsuit. I also knew that my dad would fight hard too, but I was so grateful for that support. But back when he had sat in the cabin discussing the show, what I'd really wanted for Pops to say was, no, we're not going to put you on Fox News. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you girls out of this. We are not concerned about the future of our show anymore. I wanted my daddy to stand up for me in that way. Had he known that, would he have done something different if I'd spoken up? I have no idea. I'd spent much of my life listening to the IBL teachings of the umbrella of protection, and when I needed it the most, it had failed me. It felt as though I, as a woman, was expected to do all I could to protect Pops and Josh. Nobody appeared to see it differently. So in her interview with Nightline, she expands on this and basically says that she felt like her dad was constantly protecting Josh at all costs and was constantly using his daughters, exploiting his daughters, and not putting their best interests or their safety or their health or mental health or their recovery in any sort of priority, and that he seemed to have different feelings for making sure Josh was cared for, making sure Josh got the care he needed and the help, and that he wasn't humiliated, but he had no problem using his daughters to save his show.
Watching the way that my parents kind of protected my brother, but then used me and some of my sisters, it was hard, and it's still hard to swallow. There's like one point where I call my dad out about it, and I just say, like, you treat me worse than you treat my brother.
That's got to be painful.
Yeah, it is.
Jim Bob put his greed in front of the safety and well-being of his daughters over and over and over again. And Jill is finally saying what everyone has said. Jim Bob, why didn't you protect your daughters? I would love to know that too. You guys, her book is phenomenal. Make sure you pick a copy up. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.